Welcome to Take Two with Freddy. Real talk about second chances, real life, and the power of rewriting your story. I'm Freddy Freundlich, entrepreneur, mentor, and storyteller. And here's the deal. If I didn't walk it, I don't talk it. Each week, we'll spend about 20 minutes laughing, reflecting, and hopefully walking away a little more inspired than when we came in. You know, folks, I never really plan on what I'm going to talk about in this podcast. I like to just show up and see what's sitting in my heart. Because that's usually, I find, where the real stories come from. Last night, something small, something simple happened to me that's still sort of resonating with me this morning. You see, I was walking home after taking the train last evening, and I found myself cutting through this quiet park near where I live. It was just a great night. You know, it wasn't too hot, not too cold. The air seemed to be perfect. And, it was that calm. I was listening to a podcast with my earbuds. And it was just a nice, relaxed walk. And I really felt like I was in the zone. And as I'm walking, I see a little boy. He's maybe 5 or 6 years old. And he's holding a soccer ball that looked almost as big as he was. Sitting nearby on a park bench was an older woman, and I assume that was his grandmother. The boy clearly wanted her to play, but she wasn't looking too interested. Then he sees me walking by, and he gives me this big smile wave and says, "Hello, how are you?" So I answered, "I'm fine, how are you?" And without missing a beat, he then looks at me and says, "Do you want to play with me?" Now, I got to tell you guys, even as I'm sharing this with you, I'm feeling my reaction when he asked me that. And to say the least, it was a bit of a shock for me. You can see his grandmother's face too. She was like half shocked and half embarrassed. She didn't know what to make of it. And she started by laughing and saying, "Oh, leave the nice man alone. You get the picture." And for a split second, I hesitated. I didn't know what to do. But then I smiled and said, "You know what? I don't have a lot of time, but sure, I'll kick the ball around with you for a few minutes." And that's just what we did. Just a few minutes kicking this little ball back and forth. I don't know if I made his day, but he definitely made mine. I then continued walking home, and I realized I was really on a high. I felt so alive. And that's when the reflection started, because if you know me, that's what I do. I walk and I think. So I thought about that grandmother, how unsure she looked. And I thought about myself, how proud I was that I didn't just walk past. Because a few years ago, I know I probably would have. I would have smiled politely and kept walking. But something in me has changed for the better. I'm not just reacting anymore. I'm choosing. I find that I'm much more open. I'm in alignment. And when you're in alignment, you start to attract the kind of moments that fill you instead of draining you. As I thought more about it, I realized that this encounter with this little boy represented something so much bigger. You see, this podcast, Take Two with Freddy, is about second chances. But what does that really mean, second chances? When we talk about a second chance, we're going under the assumption that there was a first one. In other words, a first version of ourselves. And what I thought was that that little boy, he is that first version of all of us. We all started out like him, curious, fearless, and unfiltered. We didn't worry about being judged. We didn't care who was watching. We didn't have a comfort zone because the whole world was really our comfort zone. We had one goal. Our only goal was to play, to explore, to be happy. Now, guys, if you think about it, every living thing, a plant, a tree, an animal, even a human, starts the same way, as a seed. And that seed's entire purpose is to grow, to blossom, to bear fruit. And as children, we do exactly that. We grow, we bloom, we laugh, we fall, we get up again. But then, somewhere along the line, and I'm not telling you guys something you don't know, life happens. The real world steps in. And the real world means rules, responsibilities, opinions, and of course, expectations. And slowly, we stop blooming. You know, I've said this before and I'll say it again. It can be written on so much of the population's tombstones, and most people I will say this for, that they died at 20 and were buried at 60. What I'm really trying to say is they just forgot to live in between. That being said, every once in a while, you meet people who refuse to stop growing, to stop blossoming. One person who I've mentioned a number of times on this podcast, because he's made, certainly in my world, such a deep impression, is Walt Disney. Guy starts with a mouse, and from that mouse, he builds entire worlds. And what's amazing is that the Disney parks today, all over the world, attract more adults than children. When they survey visitors who did come as families, most adults will say, we came for the kids, but we're so glad we came for ourselves. Why do you think that is? Because these parks, they wake up that child still inside of us, the one who never stopped dreaming. And maybe that's the point. Maybe a second chance isn't about starting over. It's about remembering who we were before we forgot. That little boy from last night had more freedom than most adults I meet. He didn't give one hoot who I was, didn't care what religion I worshiped, what was my political view, what was in my bank account, what my background was. He just saw someone who he thought could help him have fun. And he asked. No overthinking, no hesitation, no fear of rejection. What was the worst that could have happened? Well, I could have said no. And you know what? He would have just gone to the next person. That's freedom. Do you know, as I record this, I think to myself, I didn't even get his name, nor he mine. So when we talk about wanting a second chance, that's really what we want, to reclaim that kind of freedom. For me personally, these past few years have been exactly that. Letting go of what other people think, doing what feels, for me at least, is aligned, where I start focusing on feeling good rather than looking good. You know, guys, I've got so many dreams, goals, and projects, and I know I'll never finish them all. And that's okay because it's not about getting there. With imagination, you'll never get there totally. But what it is about is being here. Right now, I'm planning a vacation with my lovely wife for the end of this month. I'm really excited. Excited like a kid. And chances are it's going to happen exactly as we've planned. But maybe it won't. Doesn't matter. A couple of years ago, we had a vacation plan, but then things out of our control happened and it didn't happen. That's life. Some things I'm in control of, most of them not. But I'm in control, definitely, of my thoughts and my imagination. But there's something else here. I have learned, and I shouldn't even say I've learned. I was born that way like the rest of us, but then my mind was corrupted as an adult. So I've relearned to enjoy that anticipation. I've relearned how to use my imagination. So when I go on vacation, there are several segments to it. It's not just about the vacation. It's about leading up to it. It's about the event. And then it's about the memories. I got a lot of bang for my buck. And I believe this is what life is supposed to be. Another thing I've noticed is adults spend a lot of time looking at other people. We look at what others have, their car, their house, their success, their relationship, and we ask ourselves all the time, why not me? And sometimes we let ourselves get carried away and we start to judge. We say they got lucky, they cheated, they had help, it was illegal. But you know what? Kids don't do that. If a kid sees another kid with a cool toy, they don't resent them. They just ask, can I play too? And maybe that's the secret. If you want to know how to live well, don't ask the millionaires and billionaires or the Nobel Prize winners. Ask a 5-year-old. They'll show you what real success looks like: joy, curiosity, and presence, being in the now. At the end of the day, it's my belief success isn't about numbers or titles or trophy. Those things are nice, but they fade. And unfortunately, there are many people who have the numbers, have the titles, won the trophies, but they're a sad lot. They're not happy. We can go through lists of people who many of you envy to be like, who ended up committing suicide because they were not happy. When your time comes and you're lying there reflecting on your life, you're not going to be asking, did I win enough awards? You're going, and I believe you ought to be asking, because you'll know. You'll know through your feelings. Your feelings will then tell you, was I happy in my life or was I not? Was I in alignment most of my life or was I not? Did I love? And more important, was I loved? So when I come along and I talk about second chances, this is what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about a redo or even a restart. It's really about a return to who you really are. I'm not here to teach you something new. We all have it. We all have it. Now, you may have to learn how to reignite it. You may have to learn how to dig deep for it. But we all have it. We all were taught it. And pretty much all of us live this exact life. So As I record this podcast and as I think about last evening, you know, I wish I could find that little boy, because now that I've thought about it, I would like to say to that little boy, wherever he is, thank you. He reminded me that that freedom isn't something that we have to earn or buy or try and figure out. It's really something we already have. We just forgot to use it. And to you guys listening, I'd like to leave you with this thought. Your second chance starts the moment you stop pretending to be an adult and start remembering how to be alive. The truth is that that little boy or little girl still lives inside of you. He's just waiting for you to say yes, to come outside and play. And for those of you who are thinking, this all sounds really nice, but Freddie, we're living in the real world. I can't go back to being a kid. I'll go further and say, why not? What are you scared of? What's the worst that can happen? I have found in my life that the most successful people in really any walk of life don't need to talk it. We know who they are. Yeah, there are some people who have big mouths and say things, but we've also learned in this world you really can't believe just because somebody says something. Even when it looks like they're successful, even if they're living in the nice house, driving the beautiful car, we really don't know what's in their bank account. But when we see somebody who has that air about them, we know that they have something that we are looking for. And nobody has to tell us. And we want to be like them. And I'm sure you can all think of people, again, in whatever area you're focusing on, whether it's business or wealth, whether it's your lifestyle, your relationships, your fitness level. There are people who we say, you know what? I'd like to have what they have. And you can have what they have. And aside from everything else I've shared with you today, let me share you one other small little secret. That little boy in you or that little girl in you could care less what everybody else thinks about you or is saying about you. All they care about is success, is to achieve their goal. And whether their goal is to play soccer with someone, anyone, for a few minutes in the park, or it is to be a very successful business person, that little boy or little girl knows that we determine what we do, not anybody else. So, once again, thank you for joining me on another episode of Take Two with Freddy. If you enjoyed it, if this episode make you think, smile, or even pause, please share it with someone who might also enjoy listening to it. And don't forget to share, like, and subscribe. Until next time, I'm Freddy Freundlich, and remember, if I didn't walk it, I don't talk it.